Hey everyone, happy Halloween. Welcome to a very special episode of Brainscratch Searchlight. If you recall, last week we turned on the searchlight for missing person Antonio Neill. This week, his mother, Jenny, is joining us for an interview. We're going to ask her a bunch of questions. I've worked in some of the questions that you brought up in the comments from last week's video. I've got a whole bunch of questions of my own on top of that, and I'm pretty sure that Jenny has some stuff she wants to talk about as well. And here joining us is Jenny Neill, Antonio's mother. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Hey
Hi,
there.
thank you for having me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much for joining us. I know that we've got several thousand people and a couple hundred people that had questions. A lot of people are interested in learning more about Antonio and, of course, trying to bring out some information that might help jog someone's memory or elicit some tips. And before we got started, I just wanted to give a very big thank you to Marissa Jones of the Vanished podcast. She reached out to me in particular because I guess you had told her that you were trying to raise exposure to this any way you could. And I really appreciate Marissa doing that. How was it working with Marissa?
Oh, she was very understanding, easy to talk to. I was very comfortable and grateful for her help.
Yeah, I think that's part.
A lot of good feedback from the podcast. So
yeah, that's part, I think, of what makes her so good at what she does. She is very, very easy to talk to, and she knows the right questions to ask, which is another good skill set to have in this area. So thank you so much, Marissa. Can you tell us a little about your family, about the makeup of your family? Does Antonio have siblings?
Yeah, Antonio has a half brother, and he has 3 stepsisters through his dad's side of the family. And we're still real close with his father and his stepmom, and me and his stepfather, who's been around since Antonio was 2. So
wow.
Yeah, all real close. So
we have a bit of a blended family going on. And I just want to give a quick shout out to both his biological father and his stepfather, who are amazing enough. These guys are literally in the room with you right now, giving you support. And I think that's really special that everyone is on the same page in terms of doing the right thing for supporting each other and trying to figure all this out. I think you guys are pretty awesome. So thank you for being there. Let's just get right to it. Any corrections from the last video that you wanted to address?
First off, the car theory. Antonio, I can tell you the story about that from what I know.
Okay.
The day Antonio turned himself in on a checking in, he was on probation, and he's supposed to check in with his PO, and he had relapsed about a month earlier, so he hadn't been checking in, so they had a warrant out for his arrest. Well, he was driving his car around, and apparently he picked up some guy and was letting him drive him around.
Okay.
According to Antonio, because Antonio was too intoxicated. But I don't know if we want to say all that. But
that's okay.
And then Antonio said he had gotten out of his vehicle, and the guy took off.
Okay.
So Antonio then, in turn, went and actually found a police officer and turned himself in.
Okay.
He claims he doesn't know this guy. He just met him and was letting him drive him around because he couldn't drive himself. So obviously not thinking clearly.
Yeah, and that explains why all his personal items are left in the vehicle at the time where it's essentially stolen.
Not all his, he didn't really have all his personal items. He did have, some clothes in there, his wallet. That's why the guy had his keys and his stuff, because Antonio didn't think he'd leave them wherever he left them. So that's how the car was stolen. So it was kind of like gave permission to, doesn't know the guy,
right.
Never got the vehicle back. Car ended up being found January 24th.
Okay.
And that was a little over a month after Antonio went missing.
Right.
Car was processed. It got taken to the crime lab. It was processed for DNA. Car was pretty mangled when it was picked up, had holes in the window. It was in perfect condition when he left. I mean, relatively saying, little couple dings here.
Sure.
It was like that when we bought it, but no damage to the window or anything.
What type of area was it found in?
It was found in Linwood, which I believe that's where Antonio said they were actually at in Linwood. when he had gotten out of the vehicle.
And was it like just on the side of the street, or was it?
It was in an apartment complex.
In an apartment complex. Okay.
Somebody else's cell phone was found in the vehicle, not Antonio's.
Wow.
And a lot of belongings that didn't belong to Antonio were in the vehicle as well. And his clothes were stolen.
Did they try to trace that back to the person that was driving the vehicle? Was it his phone?
Doesn't sound like it. It doesn't sound like they did much after they processed it for blood, probably, and didn't find anything like that. And I think that's about all they did.
So no one has paid any price for stealing his vehicle?
Nope. No.
Okay. And it's interesting.
No, we never found out who did it.
Did they consider that? I don't know if it's really related to the case or not. It seems kind of interesting in terms of the timing of when it disappeared. I mean, it's before he went into jail for the month and came back out. So it doesn't seem like it's necessarily related to his disappearance. Is that kind of how the inspectors or the investigators are looking at it? Okay.
Yeah, that's kind of how we all took it.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Talking to Antonio when he was in jail, he was pretty pissed about it, and he couldn't tell me firsthand who the guy was or what his name was.
Wow.
Yeah,
But he was in a bad state at that time.
Yeah, yes, he was, yeah.
And do we know why? What was he going through something in particular? Was this around the time that his uncle died, or was this before that?
His uncle died while he was in jail for the month.
Okay.
So he had just relapsed. He was a year clean and just recently relapsed 2 months before he disappeared. So,
was there any particular event that seemed to coincide with the relapse?
Yeah. The girl he was dating at the time said that she was pregnant with his baby.
Okay.
There was a little controversy because the timing didn't match up. And so he wasn't sure it was his.
Okay.
And so he was real confused, but he was willing to support it, and support her and stuff. So.
Okay, so that seems to be the trigger for him relapsing. And then, of course, when he's in jail, we know that there's another twist in that she essentially breaks up with him while he's in jail.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So apparently that went down. And then he lost his uncle, whom he was very close with growing up. And his uncle was only 6 years older than him. So,
yeah.
And he died suddenly. So 27.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I know that I saw some posts, I think they were from you, that were talking about Halloween. And of course, this video is being released on Halloween, and that being kind of a special time of the year for Antonio.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's always loved Halloween. Gets very elaborate in his costumes. And
I have to agree. I saw some of his photos, and he really went to town on some of those costumes.
My help.
Awesome. Can you just share with us just one of your favorite memories with him about Halloween?
Oh, when we used to take him trick-or-treating when he was young, he didn't like candy. So he wouldn't stop, though, because he was getting all the candy for me.
Oh.
And so he was on a mission to get mom candy, and he never liked it. So I always thought that was great.
Wow, that's really sweet. Yeah. And does he have a giving nature in general?
Yeah. Antonio is very nurturing. He very friendly. I mean, I don't know how to describe him. He would do anything for anybody that he loved. And
yeah. Based on the story you told us about the car, would you think that he's a little too trusting at times?
Trusting, yeah.
Okay.
Kind of naive, I think. He's not really street smart.
Okay. Gotcha.
Thought he was, but he wasn't.
Yeah. Now, some articles that I ran into were talking about him struggling with depression and that it had been an ongoing thing, or there was some kind of history of depression. Can you give us some more information about that?
I think the depression started, he was very close with my mom. We lost my mom to liver disease in 2009 when he was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
And after that, he started drinking alcohol a lot and skipping school, drinking cough syrup. Mm. And I had him in and out of treatment facilities. And along with treatment, I was trying to get him mental health counseling.
Yeah.
But they kept passing the torch. Mental health said, well, he looks like a little underlying addiction. And then drug and alcohol counseling would say, well, he probably has a mental health condition that he's masking with alcohol.
Right.
And so he was never properly diagnosed with anything. But when he was clean, he was fine. So, but whatever coping skills, I guess, would lead him to use, and then he would be sad, when he was using. So it's kind of hard to tell.
Gotcha. Yeah, we don't know if it's kind of the chicken or the egg type thing that came first, but how did you notice it when you thought that he was being depressive? What did you see?
When Antonio he was just, his moods would change. He'd just be like mopey, and he wasn't a mopey. He was really happy, type guy. So, and then that's when I, pretty much figured we need to get you some help. And, this was a high school. So it was, like I said, and that would be a lot of the reason why I knew he was using like lots of, at that time it was only alcohol and the cough syrup, the weird, like he would take it to a point where he would not be really coherent, like binge drink, like blackout drink, like he wanted to escape something. So I figured something was wrong,
Right.
So.
And then at some point you decide that, as Marissa put it, you have to take a bit of a tough love approach, and you can't let...
No, that didn't happen until he turned 18, started college. Yeah. And then he tried heroin. And then once I found out he was on heroin, we tried to get him help. And after he, took the help, got clean, relapsed again. And so we tried to give him another chance. And then it was kind of to the point where it kind of kept happening. So we had to ask him to leave. Yeah. Because I wasn't going to have him, I wasn't going to enable it.
Yeah. I know we have a lot of parents that watch this channel, and I'm just curious, how did you learn about him using heroin? How did you come to figure that out?
Well, even though when he's 18 years old, his drug and alcohol counselor was not allowed to talk to me, but she did. Oh, okay. And I found out through her. Okay. So that's how I did, because I would have never thought that in a million years my son would have done that.
Yeah, that's kind of my experience with some of this as well, is people can hide it for a good long time, and sometimes the parents are like the last to know on something like that. So
I found out right away though. Yeah, because like she said that was the first time his UA came up with anything like that in it, and so it freaked her out, and she told me. Okay. Like right away.
So we have a history here. I mean, first of all, let's look at it from his perspective. This is a guy that is losing people that are really, really close to him. And it's putting him through some serious challenges emotionally. He looks to self-medicate in some way early on. You're trying to get him help. You're bringing him the resources to try to help with this. And obviously, people that have gone through this know that it's not a perfect science, and there is no magic fix. And sometimes that road to recovery is bumpy, and it does include falling off the wagon occasionally. So we're seeing kind of a typical, a guy struggling with an addiction here, and a family trying to cope with how do we help him best.
Yeah, it was hard to tell whether it was just teenage drinking at first, and then, but then when he went from like high honor student through middle school, and then high school hit, and he, quit. He played football since age 8 years old, all the way up through freshman year, and then quit football, quit really caring about school, and so everything kind of changed. So that's
how far did he get through college? What happened at college?
No, he started right away. So he met some girl in college first quarter, and that's when he started heroin. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So let's talk about girls again. He goes through the breakup while in jail. We know that there's possibly a child involved. Do you have more information about that? Do we know if this child is Antonio's at this point?
Child is not Antonio's.
Is not?
No.
Okay. There's testing to rule him out, basically?
Child's mixed with black, so.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Okay. And the girlfriend isn't, obviously.
And the girlfriend's white. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Man. And there was some theories that I picked up on about Antonio's girlfriend possibly seeing other men at the time. Obviously, we know that is the case now. But do we know that that could have been part of why he's missing?
No, we don't know. So the detective doesn't seem to think that she has anything to do with it. She's been very cooperative in answering all questions from the detective and everything. I'm not quite sure that the father of her child, has ever been questioned.
Okay.
But Antonio didn't know this guy. He knew of him, but he didn't know who he was.
Well, and we're dealing with a really tight time frame, right? I mean, he's getting out of jail earlier that same day. And do we know if he even talked to her or saw her that day?
No.
Okay.
He was using my phone when he got out that day.
Right.
You know, actually, I think he was talking to her on text message, but it wasn't anything. God, I don't recall. I think I do remember, though. He was talking through his Facebook Messenger.
Okay.
To her.
So you don't know what those messages said?
No, I do. I remember I read them all, but it was nothing significant. So
okay.
I had forwarded them all to the detective too, but there was nothing of significance in any of those messages.
Okay. So you have questions, it seems like, about could this potentially be related to his disappearance, but the evidence that you've seen isn't really supporting that strongly. We don't have a connection between him and the father of the child. Was there other men involved with her?
Not that I know of.
Okay. So not a whole lot to look at if we look at that as a lead.
Yeah.
And she was cooperative with the investigators.
Yeah.
Did you talk to her?
Yeah, I've talked to her. Yeah. Lots of times. She had known Antonio's Facebook password.
Okay.
And so when you had mentioned that very first article that said that his Facebook Messenger was checked a couple days after his disappearance, that was her.
Oh, okay.
Who logged on and checked the message. So
do we know, I think Facebook actually has a way of tracking deletions. Did you look at the deletion log at all?
No.
Okay. I would just be curious about it just to see if, because sometimes I've had other cases where people get into other people's Facebook and then they go and look at that log and they're like, oh, look, they deleted 5 things before they told us about this.
She would have had access to it. So, yeah.
Just something to consider around that.
Yeah.
We've talked about the investigators a couple times here. First of all, are you working with any private investigators or only with the police?
Oh, I can't afford a private investigator.
Okay.
So just his detective.
And how's the relationship with the detective going?
He's been very great. He answers my text messages same day. He's tried as much as he can. He follows every lead we ever give him.
Yeah.
It's just they don't pan out to anything, so he can't press the issue legally.
Right.
He can't justify searches without artifacts or facts or witnesses or anything like that. So unfortunately, a lot of things that we have heard is considered rumors because nobody's coming forward. So it's very frustrating, but he's been very attentive. Every new thing we ever, like somebody messages, somebody on and gives a tip, and he follows everything that we do get. So he's very attentive. It's just a matter of, I think a lot of it's out of his hands.
Right.
I do know our Snohomish County is very, very busy, and I want to say they're understaffed for the amount of crime that's around this area.
Right. I'm glad to hear that, because most of the time when I talk to family members in situations like this, particularly with how long this has been, that relationship is usually not very good. They don't feel like the investigators are getting back to them timely. So this is a pretty rare occurrence. And
he's very attentive. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really glad to hear that. So does he consider this a foul play situation, or does he think that Antonio ran off?
No, I don't think he thinks Antonio ran off, but he can't justify it as a no-body homicide anymore because we don't have any witnesses.
Right.
So it went from a missing person, like you found out, and then it went to a month later, we finally get a tip from the roommates in the house that blood was all over the house, and they think Antonio was killed by Andrew.
Right.
So they went and processed the house, but it was a whole month later.
Now,
They only processed the room.
I was going to ask that. So we know the room in particular was actually kind of taped off as a crime scene, and that was processed, but other parts of the house were not processed?
No, because apparently the assaults, according to Andrew, happened in the front living room, like at the front door. That wasn't processed.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot. Do you want me to go into that?
Yeah, let's go into it. What's going on with that?
Okay, so about a month later, I get a message from one of the roommates at the house saying that they think something terribly wrong happened to Antonio, and that they wanted to let me know. So I asked if they would talk to my detective, and they agreed. And immediately they had to switch, since the location of the house was in Everett, they had to switch to Everett PD. And so they took on the case for the no-body homicide, processed the scene for DNA, found multiple, I guess, DNA, but nothing that linked to Antonio directly.
Right.
They only processed the room. They processed outside because they were saying that there was blood on the windowsill and outside the window and outside on a lemonade stand. But I guess that ended up not being blood. There were tracks that were backed up to the back of the window through the grass.
Okay.
They didn't take any, apparently they just don't do tire tread, which is really discouraging.
Yeah, at least to compare it to...
They didn't even take pictures of the tire tread.
Yeah, why not do that, at least just to compare it to the known vehicles of the people that lived there, just to say that, oh, we know this guy had a truck and it looks like that truck backed up to the window, but nothing. Okay.
Nothing. There was I want to say 6 people in that house at the time.
Yeah.
No witnesses to the assault that Andrew said Antonio did. No witnesses to Antonio leaving.
Was there any witnesses to the injury, at least, that Andrew did have a cut?
Yeah, Andrew had a cut.
Okay.
I guess the girl that took him to the hospital said that Andrew waited 45 minutes, wrapped up his own cut, bandage, went in his room, pushed the dresser up against the closet door. She thought was very strange.
Yeah.
Asked if he could borrow her car. And so she went in the passenger seat alongside him, and he drove himself to the hospital. He was treated at the hospital. I guess, he did have a puncture.
Okay.
Nothing serious. He was, released. But she said that the day after he got out, he borrowed her car all day. And she's not sure where he went, but she was very suspicious. Something really grim happened. She said there was blood on her diaper bag in the trunk. Her car ended up being processed. They ended up not saying there was blood, but she said when she saw the blood on her diaper bag, she washed it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah.
So ultimately, we have someone in the house. Was it more than one of them that said something weird happened that night?
Okay, so the guy that contacted me, he was, I have a lot of old messages I could have pulled up, but he is convinced that Andrew did something just by how Andrew was acting strange, this and that. And he said all that in his report. Mark has the report there. Can you hand it to me? So the reason that apparently what they're telling the police why they ended up telling us about something going wrong in the room.
Yeah.
They were saying that a couple nights ago, which would have been a month after Antonio disappeared, they had kicked Andrew out of the house, and they were in his room moving his personal belongings out, and that Andrew's girlfriend came back to collect his belongings. While they were cleaning the room, they noticed staining on the closet wall, red-pink color, and they concerned it was blood. They also saw new carpet stains. The wall was scrubbed. and that's when they call the police. And then it says there was blood present in the closet. And then they continue to check the room. They remove the mattress cover from the mattress, and that there's a very large blood stain, 3 feet in diameter. The stain had a void in the middle of it and draining type pattern towards the floor over the side.
Whoa.
And then they just continue. They said they asked if Andrew was excessively bleeding, but he wasn't. It says, I showed her the stain and asked if that blood could have been from him. She said that the wound was covered and was not bleeding much when she saw him. And then this is the Bree told me after seeing the stain, she saw Andrew cleaning the carpet several times when he returned. It should have been noted that carpets were extremely dirty when various stains, diluted blood stains, would not necessarily stand out because the carpet was very stained and dirty anyways. So right. Diluted blood wouldn't stand out.
Which is also a weird thing. He's not a neat freak, obviously, if these carpets are that much of a mess, but now he's cleaning them like crazy. So
yeah. According to Bree, she said Andrew told her when he got back from the grocery store, he had 2 bags of groceries in each hand, and that Antonio had stabbed him then, and he was unable to defend himself because he had groceries.
Right.
She later says that there was never groceries found. And according to her, Andrew didn't have any money on his food card either. So how would he have went to the store and purchased food?
Right.
When he didn't have any money? So.
Well, and let's just talk.
The story doesn't add up.
Yeah, and let's just talk about the logistics of this real quick. So you walk in. Let's assume that he's saying the truth. He walks in with groceries. Antonio, unprovoked for some reason, attacks him. Has Andrew ever said why this attack happened? Did Antonio say anything?
Yeah, he said Antonio didn't say anything.
So he literally just walks up and stabs him with we don't know what in the neck. And then Andrew, who you kind of described as a little bit thuggish, decides he's not going to respond in any way. And Antonio goes running out the door and that's it?
Yeah, according to him.
Yeah, it doesn't sound right.
What also doesn't sound right is if Andrew left, Antonio doesn't know that house. He's never been there before.
Right.
He doesn't know the people in the house. He would have left with Andrew. I mean, let's go to the grocery store. Okay. He wouldn't have just stayed there.
Well, and even if
the grocery store would have been a good half-hour walk from the house. So. Yeah.
But even with this attack going on, your natural reaction is going to be to probably swing those bags.
He's much bigger than Antonio. Skinny but bigger, so he would have defended himself.
Yeah, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense the way this story is being told, but then it doesn't make sense that we got all this DNA stuff that isn't coming through, and we've got a lie detector that he was able to pass. It's mind-numbing, this aspect of the case, and it's unfortunate because it's all we really have to look at in this case. We don't have a lot of other considerations, and unless you're thinking that Andrew had a friend of his or a crew member of his or something like that was also there that we just haven't heard about. At the time that this happened, was any other people there, or was it only the roommates?
There was, I want to say 6 roommates there, or 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe I think 5 roommates. Andrew would have been the 6th, were in the house, but nobody saw anything. And
there was no one else there? Because I know sometimes these drug houses, you can have people kind of coming and going.
There were people there, others there, that they said earlier in the day or early in the evening, because Antonio went over there in the evening. It was like 7 or 8 when he left over there from my house.
Okay. Do we know if any of those people have been questioned?
Nobody. They're not identified.
Yeah. The first thing I'd want to do is make a list. Who was there?
I did. I tried.
Yeah.
I could never find out. Nobody would ever say who was there. So
there is a possibility that there could be someone else involved here that isn't actually living in that house.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Now I see what you were referring to earlier.
Yeah.
There's another possibility that people have mentioned in the comment threads. I don't know how reasonable it is, but it's something that I have heard of in other cases, at least as a theory. We have Antonio, who has been clean for a month. We're assuming that he can't score while he's in jail. And then he comes out. Sometimes people that have been clean for a period of time, when they get back to it, might actually accidentally overdose because they do the same amount that they're used to doing, but their tolerance has now been lowered. Do you think that there's any possibility that this is one of those cases and they were just scared and they tried hiding it?
No. No. What about, why would Andrew stab him? I mean, the whole stab in the neck thing. I mean, that doesn't make sense. So, why would he, whether Antonio stabbed him or somebody that took Antonio stabbed him, I don't know. Maybe there was a fight there that had nothing to do with Andrew, and he got hurt in the middle of it, but he had to make up some story because he's not a snitch. I don't know.
That's a really interesting theory, too.
All I know, there's a lot of things I've been just trying to put in my head that I just don't understand about any of it. But the whole overdose and covering it up, it seems really elaborate with the ways that what happened to Andrew,
Yeah.
I don't think Antonio would have done that to him, though.
Right. And it is weird because we do have a sign of violence.
Unless Antonio was defending himself.
Yeah, exactly. It does appear that we're not getting the whole story about this violent interaction. There was some type of violence that happened that night. Because
why wouldn't he, if he wouldn't talk to police, he wouldn't talk to police.
Right.
The only reason we know about it is his probation officer. He told his probation officer because in confidence, because I guess he was being threatened to go to jail. So he told him, but he still did not do a police report on it.
Okay.
Refused to talk to police.
Okay.
So that's how we know that part.
Now, didn't I hear something that several of the people were told to wake up and help him clean up or something along those lines?
No, what happened, I guess his girlfriend came over and his best friend came over. They all came over and cleaned the house.
Okay.
So it wasn't necessarily the roommates that did that. This was according to the roommates.
Okay.
That the house was cleaned thoroughly. Stuff was thrown away. They got rid of this giant area rug, I guess. Andrew started giving away Antonio's belongings. The police did find one of his North Face jackets there, but his backpack and his duffel bag was missing, and his top shell to his North Face coat was given away.
Do we know that the backpack and the duffel bag were given away, or are they just missing?
I think they were given away. According to one of the roommates, she said Andrew was giving away his stuff. And why would Andrew be giving away his stuff if, he just thought Antonio was missing?
Yeah.
Well,
and why wouldn't he get it back to you? I mean, he came to your house to pick him up, right?
From the very next day, I talked to Andrew. And he said, yeah, Antonio did this. And I was freaking out. What do you think he did that for? He's like, I don't know. He just hadn't. Yeah, he did it for no reason. He just jumped out of nowhere, did it, and ran. And
what was he stabbed with?
Nobody knows. They never had that. No.
And is there any chance that Antonio took his bags?
According to Andrew, he was in a t-shirt and jeans and his shoes and nothing else, and ran out of the house.
Just ran out of the house. And they had been using drugs that night?
I'm assuming.
Okay. We don't know for a fact, obviously.
Antonio was a month clean, getting out. So I'm assuming they were using drugs. There's no fact to that.
Okay.
The roommates say that they think that they were, though.
And what is Andrew in jail for right now?
He's not in jail now. So he's the same thing. He was on probation. And at the time of his polygraph, he was locked up on a probation violation, too.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. So he's kind of in and out of jail a lot. He's kind of known as he's more of a drug dealer, gangbanger.
Okay.
And Antonio only knows him because Andrew a long time ago dated his cousin.
Right.
So I've known Andrew a long time ago when he was actually better. Okay,
so we have his room processed as a crime scene. We have multiple blood samples taken, but nothing comes back with Antonio, with traces of Antonio on it. We've got this story about the attack at the front door, but the front door is not checked. We've got tire tracks leading up to the window, but we don't know.
We have witnesses that came forward to me. A sister of one of the girls that was there apparently said that, here, hold on. She said, "Hi, Jenny. I know you don't know me, but I seen a post on Facebook about your missing son. I may have information for you." And I was like, "Who is this?" She goes, "I don't want to get involved, but my autistic sister out of that house right after she had her baby, she got her sister out of that house. I guess it was known like a drug house where Andrew was living." And then she continues to say, "I don't believe your son is still alive. We're taking my sister down to talk to the detective that was involved in the case today or tomorrow so she could tell him what she knows. She told me that your son showed up at that house that night, stabbed Andrew in the neck over a drug deal or something. Then I guess they got into it. My sister said when she woke up the next morning, blood was everywhere, and her boyfriend were threatened that if they said anything that they'd be hurt." Wow. Then I thanked her for coming forward, and she said she also told me that blood was in a black truck, the one of the people house owned, and that the truck had now been sold. She continues to say, anyways, they get the sister to the detective, and she won't talk.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So again, it's rumors.
Well, let's just boil it down a little bit. So if Antonio gets out of jail that day.
Oh, it looks like Mark just pulled up. Andrew is incarcerated again.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Do we know for what?
Does it say for what? No.
Okay.
No. He's just,
just in and out.
He's in prison, though.
Okay.
Oh, he's in prison? So it doesn't sound like he's getting out. So.
Wow.
That's interesting.
So we have people that are talking, saying something happened here. We have information from the evidence, though, that isn't really being very clear and is making it seem like Antonio wasn't even there, which is kind of weird because we know he was there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Andrew is still potentially involved here?
Andrew is either involved or he knows. So if somebody came to that house and took Antonio, it's not known.
Right.
But I believe Andrew knows.
And we know that he passed. We know he passed the polygraph also. Do you know what he was asked in the polygraph?
I don't remember specifically. Pretty much, did you have anything? Did you do something to Antonio? And
okay.
Like somewhere along those lines.
Yeah. Let me jump to a comment from a viewer on last week's. Laura, I don't know if it's Pirate or Pirate, so I'm sorry, Laura, but the police need to get some cadaver dogs to check the house and Antonio's car. Do you know if they did any dog searches at all around the property?
Yeah, one of the roommates was saying that Andrew was underneath the house, like messing up with the side panel that goes under the house and bolting it up and stuff like that. And they thought that was really strange. They did get cadaver dogs out there to the house. And that was probably, I don't know, a couple weeks after they processed the house. And no hits. No hits.
Okay.
No.
I know in this case, it's almost one of those things that you breathe a sigh of relief, right? I mean, yeah. Saffron Sugar says, so your housemate wakes you up in the middle of the night to clean his bedroom with him, and you don't ask why. We now know that it's not the housemate, but it's Andrew's friends that come over. Do we know what day that was?
It was like a day or two. So I think he was in a hospital for a day or two, and then he got out, and then it was after that. Or if I'm not quite sure if it was during when he was in the hospital that they went and did it, or after he got out.
Okay. And were they interviewed, the people that came over to help clean?
Nope.
So we have no idea about their description.
Also, the roommate who drove him, she said her father of her child and his friend came over the very next day and stole Andrew's shoes. So they would have seen the room as well, but they were never questioned either.
It's so strange because everything you're hearing is sounding like some type of cover-up. It's sounding like...
Yeah.
It's just...
And all their stories are... I heard another story. He was taken up to the top bedroom, Antonio was, and beaten, and then drug out Andrew's bedroom window and put in the back of a trunk. and take it away. But nobody, it's like, it's all hearsay, this is rumors amongst them. But then when they talk to police, they don't say any of that.
It's almost terrible that they're willing to say that to you. I mean, do they know that you're Antonio's mother?
It's not even that they say it to me. It's that they say it to others that come reaching out to me. So
yeah.
The roommate, her name was Bree, and she did say a lot to me, but she doesn't, she won't talk to police. So
yeah, man, it's really not helpful in a case like this if they're not willing to step up and do the right thing.
Antonio and Andrew hadn't talked for a long time before they hooked up. It was like, hey, you can sleep on my couch. And he told me, hey, I'm about to be going to treatment and I'll encourage Antonio to come with me. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Antonio was, when he got out of jail, we spent the whole day looking for somewhere for him to, like, he was trying to find a sober house and got his ID renewed because, he lost his wallet and everything. We applied for we couldn't get his debit card yet because he didn't have his ID.
Right.
Ordered him a new phone and.
Yeah. Did you give him any significant amount of money?
I don't give him money.
Did he have access? Well, if he didn't even have his debit card, he didn't have access to money.
No.
Okay. I mean, I guess he could have gone to the bank if he wanted to make a withdrawal with his ID.
He knows he's always welcome. I'll get him food, if he needs food, but I'm not going to give him. So he had a, let's see. Yeah. So he had a bus card. I was like going to get him, so he could get around and stuff like that, but, no money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Tap's ghost lover.
He did have an EBT card, which is a food card.
Yeah.
That was, had money on it, but he didn't have it on his person, but he was going to go down and get a new one. Never did.
Okay.
So he still has funds that would have never been used there either. So.
And he didn't have anything worth any value. I'm just thinking if he wanted to go and score some drugs of some kind, he had nothing to really trade up for that, did he?
And I don't even know. I think he was to the point where he could have just got something fronted to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was good for it. He worked and stuff up until that point. So.
Yeah. Okay. Another comment from Tap's ghost lover. I think that the answers to this case lie with the people that were inside the house that night. Someone definitely knows more than they are saying. That's very clear after talking to you today. I pray this mother gets the answers she deserves. And I know there's a bunch of people that agree with that. Is the house, has it been re-rented?
I don't know. I knew it was vacant as of like last year, I think sometime.
Okay.
But yeah.
Has there been any other places where you've gone looking? Has there been searches that have been organized by any of the family or privately?
We don't know where to search. Bree told us that Andrew took her for a drive down a wooded gravel road, and he was acting very erratic, pounding on his steering wheel as he's driving real fast, saying he doesn't want to go to prison. Oh, he messed up. He doesn't want to go to prison. And he was very erratic. It was scaring her. And so she ended up telling us this because she was thinking possibly that could be where he took Antonio. I guess the police searched the area she thinks it was and nothing. I don't think they did a big search, but they kind of looked around. It was a public park, though. So.
Okay. And that's one of the toughest.
She's very unreliable, though, because she uses as well.
Okay. Gotcha.
She's very erratic. Her story changes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really tough about this case because in terms of the location, we really only have the house that we know he was there. We have it, which is different for this case. We actually have it processed, at least in some way, as potentially a crime scene. Nothing really supports that he was there, but we know that he was there. And then we have no other location where we know that he could have run off to or anything like that.
No, and he knows a lot of people. He didn't reach out to anybody, so.
Yeah, does he have friends that live in that same area that he might have?
Oh, yeah. He has friends everywhere he could have reached out to. He didn't have a phone, so he wouldn't know anybody's number except for probably mine. But
right.
and my son, if he was ever in trouble, he would reach out to me.
Yeah.
Right away.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty clear because he literally demonstrates that on the day that he goes missing as soon as he gets out of jail. So,
yeah.
Another comment from just Julene. He's a very handsome young man. My thoughts go out to his family and friends. Thanks for raising awareness as usual, John. I have to thank Jenny for raising awareness on this case. But yeah, it's really a heartbreaker of a case because especially in those photos that you've been helping to publicize, it looks like the two of you are so close. I mean, you look like a really, really close mother and son. And on top of that, he looks like everyday American kid enjoying life in a lot of those photos. And it's really hard to see that there was this other side that he was dealing with, and it was a dark side, and it might have something to do with the fact that he's now missing. It's just, how do you deal with all this?
I don't know. I don't. I think about him every day. He's in my thoughts every day. I just got to keep going because I need to find him. I honestly can tell you I don't think he's alive because he would have reached out to me. There's no reason he would hide from me. I got to bring him peace so I can have peace. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your whole family deserves to have the answers here. And it's terrible that there's some people that seem to have information that aren't willing to do the right thing with it and talk to those investigators and give them the pieces of this puzzle. If there was something that you could say to those people to try to entice them to come forward, what would that be?
Do what's right. Get it off your chest. You don't have to live with this. If you know what happened to my son, please come forward.
Yeah.
I mean, these people that I'm hearing that know something aren't good people. And so they are probably more afraid that they're going to go down for crimes that they've done on their own. Right. And they'd rather, and there's a big thing, I guess, people don't like to tell on other people.
Yeah.
And they, even though it could be totally anonymous, they just still don't come forward. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really unfortunate. And it's interesting you say that they're not good people because it's just a small step to becoming a good person, to doing the right thing. Just taking that first step and picking up a phone or going to a website and dropping in an anonymous comment to the authorities and letting them know what you know. It's really that simple. And you know what? It doesn't mean you have to straighten up your whole life. It could just be, like Jenny's saying, that you're getting it off your chest and you don't have to live with that piece weighing you down anymore. So, yeah. Do you have plans for any upcoming vigils?
Yeah. Antonio's 2-year anniversary of when he was disappeared is on the 12th of December. I'm going to have a vigil on December 8th at 3:00 in Bothell, Washington at Blythe Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. So anyone that's local to that, if you want to join, please show your support for this family. You mentioned that you guys really don't have money for a private investigator. Have you considered any fundraising efforts or trying to kick up a GoFundMe or anything like that?
If I felt I had enough information to, I don't know where to start. I honestly don't know what to do. There's been areas I've wanted to search, but the detective says that there's no grounds for searching off of hearsay. Because, I've heard my son was buried in a shallow grave. I've heard lots of things, but I really don't have any grounds of, I don't think people will talk. I just don't know what to do. We need more people talking. I wish I knew what direction to go in because there can be people that are totally unrelated to the people in that house that were just there.
Right.
And that took him from there, and that they know, but they don't want to say, and that they've heard, but they don't know for sure, so it's.
Yeah, you're really making the point of why I even asked the question, because a private investigator can sometimes elicit more information than a straight up police investigator can, because they're not tied, let's just say, to some of the rules and regulations that police have to follow. And when it comes to a culture like that, where, you've got people that are using drugs and they don't want to be exactly public about that, there's like this layer of secrecy that you kind of have to crack through and be able to get to that information. And when you're the mother of a missing person, trying to speak to those people, it's only going to be as effective as their fear tolerates in some way.
Yeah.
So it could be that a private investigator could potentially help in a situation like this. I've seen it kind of go both ways in other cases that we've reviewed here, but just might be something to consider. Now, in the last video, I mentioned a $20,000 reward, but you're telling me that something strange has kind of happened with that?
Yeah, we had a donor with a $20,000 reward for the safe return of my son, Antonio. According to the source, that he's good for the money, and he stood up in Antonio's first vigil we had on March 10th, 2017, and said he's offering a $20,000 reward. And then about a couple weeks later, he pulled out, saying that he doesn't think Antonio's missing and that we're trying to scam him. But it was very interesting because we didn't know this guy, and people were thinking he was just trying to get attention.
Wow.
So,
yeah, that's terrible.
There is a $1,000 reward through Crime Stoppers, though.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Wow. I'm really sorry to hear about that. That's really unfortunate. It's on the outset, it sounds like a great story. It's like, wow, a private citizen that's willing to put up some money and to help with this. And then a couple weeks later, that's really, really weird. How did he tell you about it? Was it on Facebook?
Yeah. Yeah. He just got a hold of me on Facebook and offered it up. And I was like, oh, no, that's too much, Oh, yeah. Yeah. His dad was telling me it started smaller. And then it got bigger and bigger. It started out, what was it, like $5,000, and then it went to like 10, and then it got blown up to 20.
And then there was news talking about it.
Yeah, because it was all, according to this guy, he was good for it, and according to others that knew him, he was good for it.
Right.
And then he pulled it back.
Wow, that's terrible. That's almost worse than not offering it in the first place.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I was very taken back. Why would he mess with my life, and why would he mess with my son's life?
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, have you had any interaction with psychics on this case yet?
Yeah, a little bit. They say that, a lot of them say that he's dead. His boots were heavy, filled with water. They see water, things like that. So it's.
Are you finding any of that information helpful?
We do live by a lot of rivers. I mean, there was a river right next to the house he disappeared in.
Yeah.
One of the Everett detectives said that if perhaps Antonio ran and committed suicide off the river, and we'll never find him. So he told me. I was like, well.
Wow.
Yeah. Why would he have done that? But okay.
Did anyone search the river?
Nope. No.
And we know the dogs didn't hit on anything from the house that led them to the river or anything like that?
No.
Okay. This is really tough. This is one of the toughest cases that I've actually reviewed, because we have so many pieces that just aren't really pointing anywhere. It's
so many people.
Yeah. There's a lot of people. We don't even have them all cataloged. I mean, it's really, really tough. Anything that you'd like to say to everyone before we end this?
Please, if anybody knows anything about what happened to my son, even if it's a rumor, please come forward. And you can reach out to me on Facebook. You can reach out anonymously to the police, Snohomish County Police. His detective is Detective Walvatnethe. You can reach out to Crime Stoppers. You can reach out to anybody. Just try to get the word back to me or somebody. We need to find Antonio. I need to lay my son to rest. He deserves better than this. He was not a bad guy. He was a great guy. We all love and miss him very much.
Yeah.
We just want to find him.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jenny, for spending some time with us. And I'm really sorry that you guys are all going through this. If there's anything that changes in the future, if you need to let us know about fundraisers that you're doing or anything like that, please reach out and I'll be sure to share that with everyone else. And I'm hoping that someday soon we have a break in this case. I know you need a tip to come in, and that's what we're asking for here. That's why we're doing this. Please, if you have information about this case, you might not even think it's important, do the right thing. Use the information in the description box below to contact people to let them know about this. And let's try to bring the answers to this family so that they don't have to suffer. They're suffering right now, and it's terrible. Thank you so much, Jenny. Take care of yourself.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And that is it, everyone. Another tough interview with a family that is facing one of the worst things that a family can, and that is not knowing what is going on with their loved one. I really appreciate you guys watching this. Please share it, particularly if you have friends in Washington State. We need to raise all the awareness that we can to this case and keep it raised and wait for that one very important tip to come in. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you back here on Friday with a new episode of Brainscratch.